Hey guys, it's Mel. Today I want to talk about perfection. So for me personally, perfection is just pretty much a way of life. And I believe that the INTJ personality type is kind of magnetically drawn to perfection because of the way that we live. We're constantly trying to improve the system. We're trying to fix everything. We're trying to solve every problem, find the best solution, find efficient ways to do things, constantly grow and develop everything around us. And that basically leads to a life of chasing this carrot of perfection and having ultimately high standards for everything, for us, for other people, for everything that we do. And all of that is basically this path of perfection, of trying to obtain the best possible and most accurate end result of everything. Now, I worked in an environment that was very negative towards finding perfection. And I ended up with this catchphrase because when everybody started talking about some task or idea as being absolutely impossible or couldn't pull it off or whatever, I would go around telling people I specialize in the impossible. Because I look at it, when somebody tells me that something is impossible, I look at it as a challenge. And I would guess that other INTJs feel the same way. That when somebody says, "Oh, that can't be done. Oh, that's impossible," that the response is going to be challenge accepted. If you think that that can't be done or this can't be done in this amount of time or whatever, watch me do it. Watch me do it better than you thought it could ever be done. And again, kind of creating this carrot environment where you're chasing after that. And it gives you some passion. It gives you something to live for. It gives you a drive of something to pursue and chase. And as an INTJ, I basically live in this black and white world where nothing's gray. It's black or white. When I do something, I'm going to do it 150% or I'm not going to do it at all. When I decide, when I put my focus and passion into something, I do all of it. Like, I don't just kind of half-ass do things. I don't just, I'm not just content in just skating by. Like, I am absolutely absorbed in something or I'm removed from it completely. And that's kind of plays into that aspect of like, okay, when I do something, I want it to be quote unquote perfect because I want to put everything into it. I want to chase after that. Now, when I got into a corporate environment, and I was pretty rough around the edges and I like personal growth, so I took a lot of soft skills type classes, most of which was a complete and utter waste of my time. There was one instructor that I really enjoyed taking his classes, and one of the things that he taught me a lot about was interviewing skills. Me personally, I'm a very brutally honest person that if you ask me questions, I'll tell you answers. As I've gotten older, I've learned that most people do not want honest answers to questions, and most of the time I would just ask you up front if you want the truth or if you want some politically correct version of the truth. But I would go into interviews and that's basically what I thought. I am who I am. You're trying to hire a person. Like, if you don't like me, you don't want to hire me. So, like, what do you want to know? Okay, well, here's my answer. I don't advise that at all. When you go in an interview environment, you should learn how to be more politically correct and talk your way into a job. If you don't like it later, you can quit. But anyway, so this instructor had taught me the importance of planning out interview questions and having the answers that they want you to answer them with. And one of the questions that inevitably people are going to ask you in an interview environment is about strengths and weaknesses, and specifically like explain your greatest weakness, to which who knows, I've probably given 100 horrible answers to this question in my life, and I'm pretty sure at some point I probably have thrown out that I'm not the best with people. I am not a people person. I will tell you that. I can be focus on that and provide excellent customer service and lots of other things. But yeah, if you asked me on the spot and I didn't know what to say, it probably would involve some form of that, which would not get me the job, which, yeah, I know from experience. Anyway, in looking at this question, as I sat in this environment, which was a workshop type class that lasted several days, that was something that I looked at where, I was given that advice of, okay, when they ask you for your weakness, select something that you can also twist to be a strength and show yourself not only as using it as a strength, but how even in its weakness that you can continue to grow from it and grow out of that so that it's more strength than weakness. I'm like, okay, this is so much work and a lot of like mind game playing here, but sometimes you have to learn to play the game, right? It did cause me to kind of reflect a lot on the positive and negative sides to perfectionism, though. And I started thinking about the fact that if I'm on this road of perfection, there's kind of two cliffs on either side that I have fallen off of in my life. And one is the fact that when you have such incredibly high standards and expectations of yourself to meet perfection, you can get caught in this loop of expecting everything to be perfect. Like every moment of your day and every step that you take and everything that you do, that everything has to be perfect, the first time around. And that is absolutely paralyzing, especially to an INTJ, of getting in that place of where, okay, I have to make this perfect, and you get caught in your head. So you're trying to plot everything out and you're like, oh, but there could be a problem here. Oh, this might not work here. And you're constantly over and over and over, and you're spending all this time in your mind and you're not actually doing anything. So you're paralyzed from making any kind of contribution, of making any kind of movement, and then you're going to get passed by. So, in the workplace, this is going to be something where, a project could have been done a lot easier. It could have been done a lot faster, and you were so fixated on the accuracy of it. And I would throw out the example of the fact that, like, you can be an excellent marksman, but if you go out hunting with a rifle, you're going to have to sight it in. And that's what you have to keep in mind when it comes to perfection, is that you can't take yourself in every single step and expect every part of it to be perfect when you're trying to ultimately find a perfect solution for something. You have to take some of the steps to find out what doesn't work. You have to allow for some things to break so that you can fix it to make it better. Like, you have to allow for those things. And I have gotten completely paralyzed in my life sometimes of being afraid to make a decision, of making some kind of action, taking some kind of action, taking a step forward, because I was so focused on trying to make sure that that step would be perfect. And every step isn't necessarily going to be perfect, but it is possible to find the perfect solution if you just keep moving. And so that's just like the fact that, there's people out there that think that you can't be perfect. But I am of the opinion that everything can grow, that you can build on everything. So if you tell me that something is good, I'm like, okay, well, that's good, but let me build on it and make it great. And somebody else can be like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, okay, well, it's great, but let me build on it so we can make it excellent. Wow, that's excellent. Okay, well, it's excellent, but let me build on it so we can make it exceptional. And that's the way that my mind is focused. It's like, it's not just good isn't ever good enough. Great isn't great enough. Excellent isn't excellent enough, because you can always continue to chase perfection, of like, you can find the ultimate accuracy and the ultimate solution to every problem. And that's where I'm operating from. So the other side of the cliff, if you fall off my little path of perfection, is when the carrot disappears, is when the, that idea of perfection. Again, like some people will try to bring this reality because they view people like me as having too high of standards, where if you expect everything to be perfect, you're going to be disappointed. And yes, I have been very disappointed, especially when it comes to people and relationships, because they never meet my standards. But you cannot erase perfection. If you say that it's impossible, it's improbable, and then you start believing that, you have nothing to chase after anymore. And for me personally, that's absolutely devastating, more than, hindering myself from going forward, because then it causes me to question my worth and question my existence of like, why am I here? If this is what I do and it doesn't have any purpose, then what am I doing? And this, one of the worst ways that I've ended up in this is like being in a workplace environment where they give you one of those reviews on a scale of deciding how much of a, pay increase that you're gonna get, and it's one of those like 3-point or 5-point scales, and they always give everybody whatever the mid section is because they don't want to I don't know, I think it's because they don't want to offend anyone, but I don't know, everybody has their own reasons for everything. But I argued once with a supervisor early on into my career life over that, because I was like, well, wait, I'm getting the mid raise, like that's what everybody else gets, and I come into work and I work really hard, and you've presented, like you've just done this evaluation and you've reviewed and you've said all of these great things and how hard that I work at everything. Like, why am I not getting the top tier? Like, what more do I have to do to get there? And that supervisor looked me in the face and said, well, Mel, nobody's perfect. And then he proceeded to add on to that of, well, really the closest, if anybody was going to get there, would be you, which didn't really help the situation, especially when I tried to work through the logic of the fact that, like, okay, if I'm the closest, then, and I don't get the pay increase, that means nobody does, and it's impossible for anybody to get, and why should I even work this hard? And so what I've learned from this evaluation is that when I leave this office, I am no longer going to work as hard as I usually do, because it doesn't do me any good, and no matter how much harder I try to work, I'm never going to get a pay increase, so it doesn't matter. Which my supervisor did not appreciate very much, and he was pretty much flabbergasted by my response, which was just honest. Like, I was trying to figure out like what it was that I needed to do better if I was the closest that he'd ever seen to perfection. Like, please explain that to me. But that lack of motivation, as far as feeling like I put all this effort and I do all of this work and it's not noticed, and you're telling me that even if I continue to work, if I continue to drive myself into the ground, I'm never going to get anywhere. Like, I'm never going to get any better. That is ultimately devastating. And I couldn't leave that office and just like slack off. It's not who I am. It's not what I do, but I didn't stay at that job very long. And that's the thing, is like being in a place where you feel appreciated for what you are. And I'm a perfectionist, for better or worse. Like, it's what I do. It's part of what drives me every single day. And yeah, there's some bad sides to that, and I've experienced that as well, of being a supervisor myself. I've realized how high of standards that I can put on other people, and the fact that I don't really care if people like me doesn't help in that regard, because it really doesn't matter if people like me, but it does matter if they respect me enough to listen to what I say, or to care to do the work that I ask them to. And there's a fine line in there. Like, some people, they need to like you to be able to respect you and do what you ask. But anyway, I've learned a lot of lessons in that regard. So for all my fellow INTJs out there, I wonder, for you, like, what do you see as the strengths and weaknesses to your own perfectionism? And what, examples do you have of where that has kind of like come into play, or tripped you up, or catapulted you into some kind of success? I think it is, perfection is kind of a double-edged sword, and it's something that if wielded properly, can benefit us extremely. So those are my thoughts for the day. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to chatting with you next time.